And welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. It is Thursday. This is the Thursday, January 15th show, but we'll tell you now, it is not live. This is a pre-recorded show here on the air. Reason being, I am at the NCAA convention. It is a little challenging to do the show while at the convention without being holed up in a hotel room or just being in way too busy an area. Certainly, we have gone to other events like the championships in Holland and Salem, Virginia, Holland, Michigan, obviously, and Salem, Virginia, and done shows. But that's because that's what we were there for basketball. The convention, lots going on. My first ever trip, as I'm speaking to you now, recording this. Don't know what to expect. Certainly have a lot on the table. We'll talk a little bit more about what we'll be seeing at the convention coming up later in the show. But that is why we've pre-recorded this show. From the Hoopsville studios. We have a lot on tap, and we'll talk about our guest list in a moment. Also have a new number one team in men's basketball and some other interesting developments along the way. And so while we're not going to be able to cover it all, because I'll freely admit we're actually recording this before games even take place on Wednesday night, just due to logistics. So if anything happens on Wednesday night, we're not having it on the show, and we apologize for that. It's just not feasible, as it were, to pull that off before we have to be at the convention early on Thursday morning. So a little bit different, but we still wanted to bring you guests, still wanted to talk about some of the issues and topics and news of Division III, and so we will do so accordingly. First and foremost, obviously, we talked on Sunday knowing we would probably get a new number one team on the men's side of things after WashU was unceremoniously beaten by Chicago on Saturday night. The result was WashU fell to 6th, and Augustana is now again the number one team in Division III hoops according to D3hoops.com, picking up 24 of the 25 votes. Whitewater was second, St. Thomas third with one first-place vote. They actually jumped Dickinson. Dickinson remained in fourth. St. Thomas jumping them by a single point, so somebody had to move them up. Emory moved from 6th until 5th. Marietta went from 9th till 7th, jumping Virginia Wesleyan. North Central moved up a slot. Franklin Marshall moved up a slot. Richard Stockton moved up a slot, despite barely beating New Jersey City. And then Franklin and Marshall promptly lost. Richard Stockton, I should say. Richard Stockton in 11th promptly lost to Ramapo. Just about half hour after the top 25 came out, that game went final. So Richard Stockton's going to take a hit there. We'll see how big a hit they take. Albertus Magnus moved up a spot. WPI, who lost to MIT, probably shouldn't have been that big a surprise. At least it wasn't in my mind. They fell from 7th to 13th. So some people took it out on the Engineers. Worcester stayed the same. Babson stayed the same. So did Randolph-Macon, Ohio Wesleyan. Stevens Point moved up a spot. St. Norbert moved up a spot. And now welcome to the top 25. Chapman, St. Olaf, Elmhurst, and Chicago. Elmhurst jumping in despite losing, but they played North Central tight. That certainly got them some votes. Scranton stayed at 24th. Amherst fell from 18th to 25th coming off of their not-so-impressive win over Eastern Connecticut and their loss to Williams. They are barely holding on to the top 25. Also falling out of the top 25, Eastern Connecticut, who had lost to Amherst. Illinois Wesleyan, even though they had won a few games. Husson, who lost a game, and Center, who also lost a game. Tells you a little bit about the voting out there, that I think they're still trying to figure out the best teams. I know for my point of view, and I blogged about this, that I did move some teams who won downward. Richard Stockton was one. I took Amherst out of my top 25, just including that loss. I moved Scranton down my poll. Some other teams moved down because I needed to move somebody up. So, and by the way, I am that one voter for St. Thomas, and I'm not going to give you an incredible argument as to why I think St. Thomas is number one team and the 24 other voters who voted for Augustana are wrong, because I don't have one. St. Thomas had been 2 on my ballot behind WashU. I didn't necessarily say that St. Thomas should then move into number 1 as a result of being number 2 and the team ahead of them losing. But when I thought about it, I decided, you know what? St. Thomas's one loss is to a pretty decent Bethel squad. I can't sit here and say, forget it. I'm going to give it to them. And I talked with a few people in the top 25 poll, and I even talked to Pat Coleman, who had seen St. Thomas, and he said, hey, you know what? St. Thomas doesn't look like a number one team. There was a pause between the both of us, and we both agreed. But who does look like a number one team on the men's side right now? Nothing against Augustana. They've already proven that having lost this year. Whitewater has lost twice, one to a non-Division III. St. Thomas has lost. I mean, let's go down the top 25. Dickinson's lost. Emory's lost. Wash U has now lost. Marietta has not lost, and they're moving up. Virginia Wesleyan's lost twice. North Central's lost once. Franklin and Marshall has not lost and has skyrocketed in the top 25. Stockton has now lost twice. Albertus Magnus has lost. WPI twice. Worcester twice. Babson once. And this is just the top 25 I'm looking at. If they've lost since, I've misplaced it. Stevens Point's lost 3 times. Chicago 3 times. Amherst 3 times. Illinois Wesleyan was in the top 25 with 4 losses. It's an interesting top 25 in landscape of men's basketball this year. There's just nothing to avoid that. And so who really looks like the number one team in the country? I don't have an answer for you. I gave it to St. Thomas this time. They have a loss. Are we going to go by only the undefeateds? Well, in that case, Marietta should be our number one choice. But they're not. So I think it's very interesting. For all I know, St. Thomas is going to lose in the next week or two. They got some tough games on their docket, as it were, coming up. I don't doubt that they could lose. By the time this show, actually, they'll play Hamlin next, and then it's Bethel next week, and St. Olaf after that, and then St. John's. They've had trouble technically with all 4 of those teams. So I could be looking for a new number one team next week for all I know, or the following week. So it is fascinating on the men's side. And we talk about the season of questions. This is an example of that. And I've said it's a season of questions and we're not going to get answers to, and we're going to have a very interesting top 25 coming up. I should say NCAA tournament coming up in March. Because I don't think we're going to talk about a lot of tough matchups. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to look at a bracket of death because I think it's a tournament of death. It is going to be survival to get to Salem this year. It's just plain and simple. On the women's side of things, the only thing that jumped out at me was that the FDU Florham lost a vote. Their number one vote went to Amherst, who picked up now 2 first-place votes. I don't know if that means much. Maybe a voter changed their mind on something, didn't like something like I didn't like something. It's only 1 vote. Didn't change the outcome. It's still FDU Florham in 1, Thomas More 2, Amherst 3. Then Wash U, Montclair State, St. Thomas, Scranton, NYU, Tufts, George Fox, the top 10 didn't move. The only movement was from Oshkosh, who lost and fell from 11th to 17th. Otherwise, it is status quo on the women's side. Williams fell from 15th to 18th with their loss to Amherst. Transylvania stayed at 19. Salisbury moved up a slot. So did John Carroll. Maryville moved up a slot, even though they didn't play due to the flu. Puget Sound moved up 2. North Central stayed at 24. Luther entered the top 25, and Rhodes, with a loss to Barry, jumped out of the top 25. The list of teams on the women's side getting votes is far smaller than the side on the men. But there are some teams on the men's side receiving votes to keep an eye on. Is Illinois Wesleyan righted the ship? Not sure. Eastern Connecticut, we'll see. Hardin Simmons is lurking. I think Husson's better. Bates is certainly good. Claremont Mudd Scripps probably would have had more votes if they hadn't lost to Chapman. Hamden Sydney, Williams, Rhode Island College, Center, Rowan, Whitworth, Trinity, MIT, William Patterson, Lynchburg, Dubuque, DePaul, Johns Hopkins, Cal Lutheran, and Case Western Reserve. They all have reasons to be voted for, and for the most part, I don't have a problem with any of them getting votes at some point in time. And there's still teams. I had easily 40 teams I was looking at in the top 25. Whittled that down to about 37. No, that's not right. I whittled it further down than that. Maybe 32 that I took a serious stab at. And I still had a couple I couldn't get into my top 25 after I made some drastic changes. You can read my blog on Twitter. I tweeted it earlier this week at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can find my top 25 blog there. try and put that on Facebook. Forgotten to do that in the past. We'll do a better job of that. You can also find it on the top 25 board on the message boards on the men's side of things. I put it in there for people to check out. Let's talk about who we're going to have on the show tonight. We'll have aforementioned Chapman, number 20 team in the country. Coach Mike Bukowski joins us on the show to talk about his team and his Panthers. We'll head to New Paltz to talk to Mike Rainiak about his squad. By their standards, having a terrific season and certainly playing well in a very interesting SUNYAC this year. Women's basketball, we'll talk to the number 2 team in the country. Thomas More, Coach Hans, joins us to talk about his squad. Sydney Moss recovering from her ACL injury at the end of last season, how that's impacted the team and how the team is playing now, considering how much they also lost from last year. We also talk on the women's side to McDaniel women's basketball coach Becky Martin, 34th season closing in on win number 500. We'll talk to her about that. And then we have our School of the Week. It debuts this week. It is Bard men's basketball. We talked to Adam Turner with his squad. They are certainly playing good basketball by their standards as well. We'll talk to him about why 7-6 is so important to the Raptors squad. So that's all coming up here on Hoopsville on a pre-recorded show, but we certainly hope you will enjoy it. At the end of the show, we'll talk about what's going on at the NCAA convention, how you can keep tabs on everything, and why there's some important votes taking place this year. That'll come up at the end of the show. And don't forget, we're on the air Sundays and Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, for the most part. We will be talking tonight on Thursdays, primarily Mid-Atlantic, East, Great Lakes, and West. And then on Sundays, we primarily talk South, New England, Atlantic, and Central. Sometimes put a South region coach into our shows on Thursdays just because we can't get him in on Sundays. We also have our Coach's Corner on Sunday. Already have one in mind for this Sunday. We'll see if we can line him up when we're at the NCAA convention to chat with him, but that's coming up. We'll find out later, as it were. I also want to point out, we had kind of talked about this a little bit. We have started our fundraising campaign a little bit under the radar, as it were. Last year was a big deal to us. It is still a big deal to us. Just trying not to make as grandiose a deal about it in the grand scheme of things. It is up and running. You'll see it on our d3hoopsville.com website. And you'll probably see it in some tweets and stuff down the road as well. If you feel so inclined, please check it out. Follow the links. Make a donation if you're so interested. We'll make a little bit more of a deal as we go along in the campaign. It runs to the end of the basketball regular season, March 1. Even if we go past our goal, or I should say, even if we hit our goal, we can certainly go past it. We certainly would appreciate any of the support you can give us. I can tell you, for example, in putting this show together for this week, we had to have a huge expense that we were not expecting to pay due to changes in some technology and programs and whatnot. And those kinds of things are what kind of crop up on a program like ours that doesn't necessarily have sponsorship and have a bank of money. We had it last year as well with studio renovations that were unexpected, etc. So any help is appreciated. We will try and spend the money as wisely as we can on future projects. We'll also maybe putting out a wish list to give you an idea of some of the items that we're looking to get to improve the show as well. We certainly want to travel, and I would argue that most of our expenses are in travel alone. So there's that, and we'll, again, it's through Indiegogo as we've done in the past, and we certainly hope you'll take a moment to at least look at it and consider it. We certainly appreciate it as well. Also, we'll be doing a 12-hour show right now. We're looking at doing it in 2 weeks' time on the 29th. Details still to be figured out, so no promises yet. I got to work out a couple, dot some I's and cross some T's, and then dot the T's and cross the I's as well. But we'll let you know more about that. Again, on Hoopsville Twitter account, at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us if you have questions about any of what we're talking about, Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. And, of course, you can go to Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. And on that note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll jump out to the West Coast and talk to Chapman's men's basketball coach, Mike McHugh, about his 13-0 Panthers squad and the SCIAC and what he thinks of the conference and the landscape of Division III and what he thinks about his own team. Can they get back to the NCAA tournament this year? You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville when we come back.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
And the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this special pre-recorded show. Obviously, as we discussed at the top of the show, on the road at the NCAA convention, making it a little difficult to actually do the show live. So we appreciate you taking the time to at least enjoy this format, which is essentially the same thing. Every interview is live. We certainly aren't editing the interviews necessarily, so it's the same feel, just not with the true live sense. But we appreciate you taking the time to enjoy it. Lots to talk about on the show, and this is that time of year where we're still kind of figuring out the questions, as it were. Who is that good, and who are the teams that we're paying attention to who have now stepped up to the plate, as it were, or have finally emerged from the fog of everybody starting the season as we're into the second half of the year. And one team that's certainly been, at least on my radar, probably since the preseason, really, and just trying to get a gauge on what they were up to was Chapman on the men's basketball side. And so they get a big win over Claremont Mudd Scripps to stay undefeated at the time that we're talking to them. And so we couldn't resist the urge to jump out to the West region and talk to Coach Mike McHugh. And he now joins us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Coach, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. It's nice of you to think of us and take the time to come out west. Yeah, good deal.
Absolutely. I wish I could actually fly out west. As much as I love snow, I don't enjoy ice. And so right now, Southern Cal would be a nice area to visit. But let's do it virtually instead. Your team off to a terrific start. And, of course, as I mentioned, we're really halfway through the season at this point in time and turning the corner. 13-0, 4-0 in conference action. You have a mixed bag of non-conference play. We'll talk about that in a minute. But how important has it been to get off to this good start?
Well, it's better than the alternative, of course, and going the other way. But, hey, winning solves a lot of problems, as coaches know, and in regards to everything that goes on with your team throughout the season. And luck plays a very big part of winning. And I don't think people talk about luck as much. I mean, I watch the NBA games on television, the playoffs, and the professional football, and a team that gets lucky, recovers a fumble, or doesn't have a turnover. There's a big play. So we've been lucky in regards to being able to win some close games against some good opponents that might have gotten the ball bounced a certain way, and we've been lucky that we haven't had any injuries to our top players that have kept them out for any length of time. So I think all those things play into it. And Dave, people don't know much about West Coast NCAA Division III basketball, but it's I don't know if it's any harder than anywhere else, but there really isn't a stalwart team out here that's good every year. So teams have to more or less build their programs over a 2 or 3 year period of time. And that's what we've done. You know, we're like any other team out here, division in our league. You get a young group of players, and you hope they mature for a couple of years, and it pays dividends starting their junior year, which it did last year for us. We start 5 seniors, and the 2 players that come off the bench right away, one's a senior, one's a junior. So the dividends are starting to pay for our program, having the same group of guys together for a long period of time. And then the luck part, you know, like I just said, the luck has put us at a good position right now this time of the season.
You bring up the seniors, and let's start there. You look at the starting or the stats for this team, and it's led all by seniors. This is certainly a very senior-heavy team. Your first 6 scores are all seniors, going as high as nearly 19 points a game from Colin Zavarsnik.
Yeah, Zavarsnik. Yeah,
Zavarsnik. Hamask. I can't speak today, Coach. I apologize.
Taylor Hamasaki.
Thank you. You have the all-name list here going, that's for sure. 15.5 points a game. John Joyce. I like John Joyce, only because it's easy to say. 9.5 points a game from the center. Yeah. Justin Young, a senior, 8.5 points a game. Garrett James, a senior, 6 points a game. Jordan Young, a senior, 6 points a game. If you were to look up senior-led basketball team, you guys might be the definition right now with that kind of stat sheet.
You're right, and these seniors have been through a lot. As freshmen, they didn't play very much, and we were then at that period of time senior laden. You know, we've been into the NCAA 3 out of the last 5 years, and so you're talking about this freshman class. They were on the bench the year after we went back-to-back NCAA playoffs. So this group has seen a lot. As sophomores, we were an average team. If you call average by your record, I think we might have been 13-12. So they've seen both ends of it. And the thing about all programs is that your seniors understand your culture, you know, what they expect. They understand how to travel, different locations. And it's kind of funny, a freshman is so inexperienced, they're still trying to probably get a date, you know, and their seniors' hearts have been broken already. So there's a lot of maturity between the two, and that's where it paid dividend. But, you know, seniors are always good to have, you know that, based on what I just said. But the other side of the coin of seniors is sometimes they don't listen to you. You know, sometimes they've heard you so much over their previous 3.5, their 4th year, that they kind of tune you out somewhat, and they're very similar to how we were growing up, and we didn't listen to our mom and dad as we got to be 18-year-old kids, thinking and they tune them out. So there's the other side of the coin with your seniors. They're good, they're experienced, they know how to travel, you count on them, they know the culture, but sometimes they tune you out, and you really have to be aware of that, maybe shake their tree a little to get their attention. But I'm really happy with our seniors. I really am, and you know, like all Division III programs, we're no different. All the Division III programs, they have good players. They have good kids. Their parents have raised them right. You know, it's a really true definition of the student athlete, because that's what it's about.
Sure.
On scholarship, and they're all going to graduate. You know, I don't think any Division III programs, don't not a study table. The kids have that initiative. They fit in with the student body. But our seniors are just like any other program across America. They're no different. They look different. That's all.
Well, what's interesting is those all, you know, the ones we mentioned, all in the leading of the score sheet, are the ones on your team. There isn't a senior who doesn't get any playing time, which some basketball teams have. You know, is the I hate to say the term, but the Rudy of the team. You know, you don't have that. Every single senior on this squad is contributing. Every single senior on this squad is getting at least 12 minutes of basketball. Most of them 30. How much is that? You know, how much do you have to kind of get the underclassmen to understand their role as a result, that they see all these seniors playing and have to let them understand you're going to get your chance too. We need you at occasions. Yeah.
Well, every program at every level recruit differently based on what their needs are. If you look at our kind of, if you say the business model, we're top heavy in seniors, and we're also top heavy in freshmen. We don't have juniors and sophomores in any great numbers. Maybe one junior that plays. We don't have any sophomores that play. So if it was a perfect world, then our freshmen next year will come in and they will become the class we try to get maturity out of and stay with us all the way through. And maybe there'll be more growing pains as sophomores, and as they become juniors, now we might be able to have a good team again. So that's what we've tried to do over the last decade or so since I've been here is try to not bring in, 4 freshmen, then next year bring in 4 more freshmen and 4 more freshmen if we have a balance in classes. We've kind of gone that route for us, and it's been pretty successful for us. So we're a little bit more patient. Mm-hmm. They see it. If you had 8 juniors and 5 sophomores, and with our seniors, there might not be as much patience with it, and that also creates some headaches if you have numbers in your junior senior class. So right now, I think it's working out well for us. Like the senior class, they were freshmen 4 years ago, and they saw a bunch of seniors. So we've been lucky in that regard.
When we look at this team, and again, you talk about the ebbs and the flows. The last year you were an independent, 25-4. You joined the SCIAC in 2011. Of course, didn't play in SCIAC games technically. I mean, you did, but not as a record. 19-6. Then you hit that spot in the 12-13 season when you were 13-12. I think you're just trying to do it to be symbiotic with the year. And then 18-10. Now you're 13-0. You're on pretty much guaranteed a 22nd winning season. As a head coach, straight winning season, I should point out. But how different has it been to have been that independent who certainly knew the SCIAC well, you played those teams, to now be fully immersed in the SCIAC in your 4th season, per se, in this conference?
Yeah, for people who are listening, I don't know if they know what the SCIAC is, but it's a Southern California Intercollegiate Athletic Conference that entails group of teams probably a little bit north of Los Angeles, east of L.A. in the Redlands, maybe a good hour and a half east of L.A. South, we're probably the most centrally southern school, Chapman. So it's a very good league. We've made application for 20 years to go into that conference. It was just logical.
Sure.
We fit academically the profile, the enrollment. So for many years, probably 18, 19 years of my 22 years here, we were an NC2A Division III program. Well, knowing that conference, we would play those teams in the preseason, try to get as many Division III games in our region as possible. Some years we played those teams twice. Some years we couldn't play them based on just scheduling conflicts with both of us. But as an independent, I think the advantage, if there is an advantage being in a conference, is that you have 3 seasons within your season. Now we're in a SCIAC, you have a preseason.
Yeah.
You can go 0-9 in your preseason, and you can start all over. You have new energy. And then you have your conference. You're trying to win your conference. And, well, if you get into your 10th game out of 16 and you know you don't have a chance to win the conference, you want to finish, for us, the top 4, because the top 4 then make the conference tournament to get that automatic NC2A bid. So 3 seasons within a season, Dave, where as an independent all those years, every game was magnified because you had to win every game because you didn't have those 3. You had 1. So there were some years where, after 10 games being 5-5 and knowing what our region record is, we did not have a legitimate shot at getting an at-large bid at Division III. Those are the challenges as a coach. So you come to practice and you have to, get them to go, and appeal to their senses about why wouldn't you play hard? Why if you don't have nothing to play for, you do it. So that has really helped us in a lot of ways, is being able to continue to just, boot what we're going to do. An independent is really difficult to go that whole season. There were some years we had good records.
Yeah.
Went over 20 games, and we did not get a bid either. So I liked being in the conference. It helped scheduling because as an independent, you had to find 25 basketball games as an independent. Very difficult to find games in January and February as an independent because everyone else will be in conference play. So we traveled different places to find as many games as we could. So the upside is scheduling makes it a little bit easier, finding 9 games versus 25.
Sure.
And of course, we know that we know the league. We play them a lot, but playing them as an independent versus playing them in your conference is much more demanding.
Well, and you still have the challenges of scheduling. You're sitting out on what we call one of those proverbial islands in Division III down there in the Southern Cal, Central Cal region. You look at your schedule. You have West Coast Baptist and St. Catherine, non-Division III schools. You had to play Bristol, back-to-back games over 9 days with La Sierra. So you've got 5 of your 25 locked up with non-Division III opponents. I'm assuming it's still challenging for you guys without getting on a plane and taking off and heading somewhere, i.e. Las Vegas for the D3 Hoops Classic, i.e. even heading to the Mississippi River and further east. Yeah,
you're right about that. And we're very similar to the Northwest. Whitman, Pacific and Willamette, all. They're on an island up there, too, and we are. And we try to play each other. Like this year, we went to the Santa Cruz tournament and played Whitman. Kind of not a halfway point. I think they traveled further than us. Southern California, within an hour's drive of our campus, there are so many opportunities to play other schools besides Division III. There's NAIAs out here.
Right.
People who don't know about NAIAs, they're really – the NAIAs out here in California are really Division I masquerading as NAIA schools. They're really tough to win. Like you just mentioned, St. Catharines. St. Catharines last night, I think, played San Jose State, if I'm not mistaken. And they played Division I last night, and they lose by 13 points on the road. And we beat St. Catharines. I know people who don't follow basketball, don't understand the relative scores. We play someone else plays someone. So the NAIs are very good out here to play because they give scholarships. And when you play a scholarship program versus a non-scholarship program, you got to really play well to compete with them.
But when you have those 5 games and you are unable to get further east for games, which is part of the equation, unfortunately, for a lot of the schools in the SCIAC, is that pretty much give you the idea, and granted this is maybe a better or easier idea than when you were independent, that you just need to go out and win this conference. You guys got that auto bid last year. It's a matter of, we're going to schedule the best we can, but we cannot gamble on that large bid at all from this area.
It's true. In our SCIAC conference, and this is only my third year, Chapman's third year into the conference, the conference has a history of a one-team, one bid out of the conference. So our record right now is irrelevant to what the big picture is. Our conference historically is a one-bid conference. You still need to win your conference tournament to make the at-large bid. As evidenced last year, we finished third behind Pomona Pitzer that was second and Claremont that was number 1. And, of course, we won that. We went, and then, of course, Claremont and Pitzer did not get a bid. So as we look at, where are we at as a program every year, our goal is to finish in the top 4. People say, won't you have your goal to win the championship? Yeah, sure, of course. But, we want to make the NCAA tournament, and you have to win your conference. We're very similar to a Division I conference out here, the Big West. There's UC Irvine, Long Beach State, the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, UC Santa Barbara, those teams. We're very similar to those schools. A very good Division III program, which we are in our conference. Same with the Division I's out here. That's a one-bid conference also, so are we. So, it'd be nice if our conference can get better, and that can happen. Sure, it can happen. But right now, as we speak to what we are, we're a one-bid conference, and if we cross our fingers, we might get 2 one of these days. And there's been 2 before we got into the conference, meaning Chapman. But you just have to play the hand that's been dealt to you, and that's our goal. And Dave, I'm not a pessimist. I'm not an optimist. I'm a realist. I'm at the point in my life. I've been coaching a long time. I'm realistic on things, and realistically, if you win, we're not going to win the rest of our games. Being undefeated right now is nice, but again, we got to be ready to play those 4 games after making the top 4 in our conference, and that's not a gimme either. Our conference is well balanced. You teams like Claremont is dynamite. They've got all the parts to make an NCAA tournament. They're a tourney team. You have Cal Lutheran. They have all the parts. We beat Pitzer last night by 2 points. If life was fair, they should have won 2 of their top starters didn't play last night, which shows you how good they can be without their top starters. So it's not like, it's nice of you to talk to us because our record looks pretty good right now, but I still don't think there's a team in our conference right now is hands down will win it. And how many wins how many losses can you take to win a championship, or how many losses do you need to get in the top 4? That might be 4 or 5 losses. So I'm a realist in that regard. I'm not an optimist. I'm surely not a pessimist.
I was going to say, I mean, you look at this conference. You guys on top at 13-0, 4-0 in conference play. Cal Lutheran 10-2, 4-0. Claremont Mudd Scripps, who you just beat by a couple points, 10-3, 3-1. Whittier's lurking at 8-5, 2-2. Redlands, who's certainly carried the mantle in the past. Occidental, who's carried the mantle in the past. Laverne, who you keep thinking might make a run. They're struggling right now. Caltech is certainly trying to change its ways as well. You mentioned Pomona Pitzer. You talk about how this conference might take 4 losses for the top team. Is this one of those years where there's a lot of good teams, and unfortunately this would be a great year for the SCIAC to get 2 teams the NCAA tournament, and it just might not happen?
Well, it could. It could if the dominoes fall in place, because you have Claremont that has a kid named Gaffney who's the MVP last year, and last night we played Pomona Pitzer, and there's a kid who could have been co-MVP. The rules don't allow 2 MVPs within our conference, only 1, and that's McAndrews. The conference does have good players, probably a little bit better than, say, previous years, as you look at just how the timing of it is. And if life was fair, and life's not always fair. Like I said, if life was fair, we should, Pomona should have won last night instead of us winning by 2. But if life was fair, maybe this should be a 2-team conference this year. But if it doesn't, and it holds true to what I said historically we've been, we just hope that we can get that top 4 and win it, those 2 games. But we do have a good conference. And like I said, we're no different than other coaches across the, there's good coaching everywhere, and that doesn't exempt. I mean, this conference has good coaches. They know they can prepare. They coach the heck out of their teams. Teams are ready to play. And if people out there listening right now have, they look at Division I and the teams on TV, and this weekend you have the big games are coming up, of course, but. Division III basketball is pretty good, and people don't know how good it really is. And across America, Division III, you don't have the kids that were the 5th best player on their high school team. We always get the 1st best player. I can remember when Dean Smith retired, 20 years ago, and I was listening to his conference, news conference at the very end, and one of the reporters asked him, "Hey Dean, now you've been at North Carolina these years, and you retired. What do you want to do?" And he kind of said, "I still like coaching. I like to maybe go get me a Division III job where I don't have to recruit. I just take the players who show up." And I'm listening to that and say, "Wait a second, Dean. Ho. Even Dean Smith doesn't understand. You have to recruit. You have to actively get after it to be able to compete in your conference, and of course nationally." So I think the people listening out here to us talk, Dave, I think they'd appreciate small college basketball on how they compete, and the kids care just as much as the guys on TV. The March Madness Division I, our level, they care just as much. Coaches prepare just as hard. You get the butterflies, and you have strategies just like you do, except it's not nationally known. And another thing too is to toot our horn about Division III. If ESPN did a thing on a trial. Sometimes ESPN will follow Gonzaga around. Let's follow Gonzaga for a week on the road trip. Let's take the camera on the bus and where they eat. That'd be a great thing to follow a Division III program somewhere. See how they travel. See the little gyms that you go to, and how tough it is to play. And they're traveling. How hard is it to get to those locations? And that would be a really nice series to see. But would they ever do it? No, because it's not Duke, it's not North Carolina, it's not UCLA, it's not Texas, it's not Kansas. But those kids, meaning our kids at Division III, they care as much as those programs do, and it's a really nice level. And I think if people had some time to go see it, they'd appreciate it too and feel the same way I do about it.
Well, you said it certainly just as good as anybody else could say it, and ESPN wouldn't want it either because it doesn't involve an airplane. As most people have to certainly drive. to their games. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us on the show. Again, congratulations on the 13-0 start. We'll certainly enjoy watching how well the Panthers do the rest of the season, and especially as you get into SCIAC play with your upcoming games. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
Well, yeah, like I said, Darren, I appreciate you taking the time to give me a call and think about us out here in the West Coast. We are on an island, and it's a pretty good island, though. Southern California is a good place to live. It's a great place to visit as well. And, hey, if anyone, your listeners, ever in Southern California and they find themselves being bored, which is really hard to do, a lot of good things in Southern California, come out and see Chapman play and give us a call. We'd love to leave you tickets, as many tickets as you want, and get a chance to see really good small college basketball. So, Dave, appreciate you, again, thinking of us. And, hey, the best to you as you head off to that NC2A convention.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it. And take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Mike Bukowski joining us here on Hoopsville, and we appreciate him taking the time to do that from Southern California. Panthers up ahead. Got Caltech on the road, then Laverne on the road before returning home with Redlands, sandwiched in the middle of another road trip on the other side, Caluth, Pomona Pitzer, and Claremont Mudd Scripps. So 5 of the next 6 games on the road before they'll finish with 5 of their final 6 games at home. Thanks again to Coach Bukowski. Going to take another break. When we come back, we'll jump back to the East Coast and talk to New Paltz State, or SUNY New Paltz, in men's basketball. They're certainly having a good season by their standards as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. If you have questions for us or our guests, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at D3Hoops.com or Facebook us at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. More Hoopsville when we come back.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
And welcome back to Hoopsville on a special Thursday show. Of course, as we have indicated, completely recorded as I am at the NCAA convention. A little hard to do a show while out of town at an event and not wanting to be holed up in your hotel room. Needless to say, we're on the air. And, of course, on Thursdays we talk to East, Mid-Atlantic. We also talk Great Lakes and West regions primarily. And so we'll jump up into the East region in this next story and next guest. The story of New Paltz State, for example. A team is 6-6 overall, 4-1. Of course, a big game coming up against Oneonta State. Of course, that game will have taken place by the time this interview takes place, so forgive our tardiness if the records have changed, but the team has won 4 in a row. Looking to break through, as it were. And so we decided we'd bring him in via Skype, Mike Rainiak from New Paltz, the head coach. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. Of course, cool to have you on Skype as well. Let's be honest. This is a team that, 6-19 last year. You've already met that win total as we speak, 11-15 a couple years ago, 9-17. This is a team that has always struggled to even get to 500. So to be at 500 at this point when we're talking at 6-6 and to have won 4 in a row, including some big games in conference play, Cortland State, Geneseo State, Brockport State, no particular order. You guys are having a good mark of the season halfway through.
Yeah. I think coming from Amherst, when I inherited the program at New Paltz, I knew it would take a little bit to get the ball rolling. We had some, over the past years, kind of some unfortunately timely injuries and things of that nature. And now we're finally got the whole band together. And my first recruiting class are now juniors, and they've been playing since they've been freshmen. So it's kind of nice to have those classes with experience and to overall have the depth that you need to compete in the SUNYAC, because every night is a battle. I mean, last year we sent 3 teams to the NCAA tournament, so it's night in, night out is a war for sure.
Tough start to the season, let's be honest. 6 losses of the first 8 games, including 4 in a row to start with Hamilton, Vassar, Utica, and Gordon. Of course, a few of those games on the road, as was Vassar, as was Utica, played in Rochester, Gordon in Rochester. You got back with a win against Mount St. Mary. Plattsburgh then tripped you up. Potsdam State, you get a win. Then Roanoke trips you up in a game that you traveled all the way down to Salem, Virginia. And, of course, played Eastern down there, and they tripped you up again. How hard is it to get a team kind of refocused after a start like that? And then you get a bit of a break, for example, between Potsdam and Roanoke. You had a month off. How do you get these guys kind of refocused on the task at hand?
Well, we did beat Eastern, so that's
correct.
That's we were 1-1 down in Roanoke. In the beginning, philosophically as a coach, I want to play some really solid out-of-conference opponents. In the beginning, we were without arguably my best player, Rosa, for those first couple games. So we were kind of learning to find our identity. And really, we were going up against seasoned programs like Gordon, who's been perennially in the NCAA and on the road at the Rochester tournament, and Roanoke at Roanoke. I wanted to give my guys, to sound lack of a cliche, I guess, is in order to be the best, you got to play the best. And these are programs that I respect, and I wanted my guys to see what it would take to win games. And I think largely those, missteps that we had early on in the year have greatly helped us in this SUNYAC kind of stretch that we've been fortunate enough to come out with those wins for sure.
You also have a pretty young team. You only have 2 seniors on this squad. You have a handful of juniors and the numbers of sophomores and freshmen.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're in your 4th year. You're really starting to get your recruiting, lack of a better description, but kind of traction going.
Yeah.
Certainly, these are your students now, as it were. How much of an impact has that made?
I think, whenever you start at a new program, you want to get kids that kind of fit your personality and kind of what you look for. And kind of I've taken some of the players that, I really liked at Amherst, those qualities that I liked, the versatility, the length, and kind of now I've recruited it here at New Paltz with those, because we are a high academic public institution. I have high IQ players with length and versatility, because that's just where my coaching philosophies lie, and where I think I'm best to get those wins is kind of, that's my style. So I think definitely it's helped the fact that now I have 3 classes that are in the program that I think are versatile. They have depth. We, for the first time, we have height, which is nice. And so I think the more and more that happens, the easier it is to get that ball rolling for sure. But recruiting, it's got to be a consistent effort year in and year out at this level.
Well, certainly the truth. When you look at your team, though, you've got a lot of weapons, at least on the stat sheet. You've got Rosa, who you talked about not playing the whole season, but had a few missed games. But he's averaging 16.5 points a game, 4 rebounds a game. It's handing out nearly 3 assists a game. So is Taylor Suara. If I stated his name wrong, I apologize. 3 assists a game, 14.2 points a game, and 10 rebounds a game practically. Kevin Roach, 10 points a game. Keegan Donovan, 10 points a game. You got more guys at 9 points, 6 points, etc. You have maybe more weapons than I remember this squad having in the past.
Yeah, and my best teams when I was a part of those Amherst squads under Dave Hickson, we had 5 guys average double digits or around that. And my goal has always been to establish that here at New Paltz. In the years past, I had the leading scorer in the league a couple years with Matty Devine, and to be honest, we just didn't have the pieces around him to be a winning basketball team. This year, I can honestly say we have multiple weapons. We have around 5 guys, like you stated, averaging double digits, with a slew of guys ready to step into roles. When we played Geneseo this weekend, I think we had 5 guys in double digits, and 2 players that didn't even score had big games the night prior. One in particular, Andrew Seniak, hit the game winner against Brockport. So it's nice to have those weapons, just as long as they continue to buy into that team philosophy, which I think my guys have.
I should point out that Keegan Donovan has played in one game. It was against Geneseo. He got 10 points in 17 minutes. So I didn't catch that one as I was reading through the stat sheet, but still nice contribution for a guy in that first game. And I hear a lot from coaches, especially this time of year. This is that time where you already know who your good guys are. This is when those role players start to play a significant role, for lack of a better word, and step up for you, and you start finding the little niches that they can fit into. Seems like you're getting that from guys like from Donovan and others.
Yeah, and Keegan started at point guard for me last year, and he's coming back into the fold, obviously 1 game in. I think in particular in the SUNYAC, we have, the player Rosa and Soa, and they're really keying in on them. So it's very important that these peripheral pieces like Kevin Roach and Andrew Seniak and Alex Perlman and Taylor Mulvey and pieces like that really come ready to play game in and game out. I mean, we've had maybe 5 leading scorers the last 6 games. Reagan Bogan against Geneseo had 21, and he comes off the bench. So it's very important that, especially as we get deeper and deeper into this season, people know we have Soa, we have Rosa, we have Roach, but they can't stop all of our depth, I think.
When you look at this SUNYAC conference, and I certainly have taken a look at it this year in trying to understand pretty much who's the top team, it has been anything but easy to figure out, to be honest. Cortland State starts off undefeated in the conference. Well, now they're 8-3. Having taken a bunch of losses, including to yourselves. Oswego State's up there at 9-3 and 4-0. Nothing against Jason Leon, but I've seen this team start hot before, and then the conference kind of cools them off. Plattsburgh back in the conversation, 8-3, 3-1. Geneseo 7-4, 3-1. Of course, most of these teams I'm mentioning, you've gotten wins over already.
Yeah.
And this conference also tends to have what you thought you saw last year is not the truth this year. Or what you think going in this year is not even close to the truth in reality.
Yeah.
We're halfway through. How do you see this conference shaping up?
I see a lot of parity. Last year, I saw it too with the top tier teams in Geneseo, Plattsburgh, and Brockport. I thought Brockport was the best, but I also thought Plattsburgh and Geneseo were pretty solid as well. This year, it seems like we're going into the conference and we're all kind of beating up on each other. There's no clear-cut favorite. I thought maybe going into the year there was a couple kind of front runners, but it has now kind of, like you said, cooled off a little bit, and we're now sort of in that conference play where night in and night out, a win or loss can either put you in the tournament or put you out. It's that kind of, that separation is so razor thin this year. It's pretty unique as compared to other years.
Talking to Mike Rainiak here, SUNY New Paltz head coach. Team is 6-6 overall, 4-1 in the conference, which puts them on top of the conference right behind Oswego State. You do have Oneonta State coming up, and we say that on the interview. By the time this hits the air, you will have played them on the road. You also have Fredonia State coming up, though, 8 days after that, and Buffalo State after that following day. Rare big break in the middle of January. Was that one you tried to avoid?
It just by kind of scheduling and situations, like normally we would play the Oneonta game on Friday, so at least that cuts out a couple days maybe, but they had a scheduling conflict, so we had to play. We're playing it tomorrow. It takes a little bit of management. I'm letting my guys go home Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we'll get back after it on Monday, just so that they can get kind of a little bit of a break, because we were on the road for New Year's and so on and so forth, and right before classes to get their minds right and kind of get ready for the second half of conference play. And it's all about kind of managing bodies. It's managing the mental state, if anything, and just to keep our focus. So I'm telling them to not even go near a gym on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and kind of relax, and then come ready, mentally prepared, so that we can get ready for Fredonia and Buffalo State that week.
I know coaches don't like to look that far ahead, but I do find it interesting. Starting on January 30th, you have a stretch of 5 home games: Oswego, Cortland, Oneonta, Potsdam, Plattsburgh. Those are going to be key games, and they're at your place. How important is it that you get a chance to take on those teams at New Paltz?
Oh, it's going to mean the world. I think now what's we've been fortunate is we've been playing some road games, while the students haven't been around or in session. So that's nice, because when we play our home games, our students will be there. Our Hawks Nest will be in full force, which is great, and it will give us that extra push to be successful in that stretch. For sure, looking at it at the beginning of the season, I thought last week would have been, probably one of the toughest weeks of the year. And I also looked at that home game stretch being one of a really nice time for us to create separation in the conference.
You've also won them in interesting ways. You controlled the game against Cortland. You hit a last-second shot against Brockport. You beat Geneseo by 13. I would say maybe the cat is out of the bag in some cases, but what do you think the thoughts are when it comes to you guys around the conference?
I think I think maybe in the beginning we took some teams by surprise. Hopefully we'll continue to take teams by surprise, but like you said, the cat's out of the bag. I think it just was a matter of time before we got all the pieces back. I mean, last year we lost Rosa, so now he's back, and that's kind of what contributed a little bit to our poor record last year. We have more seasoned players. My junior class has been pretty much playing since they were a freshman. Roach has been starting since he's been a freshman. So that type of experience, is invaluable at this stage of the game. And I think, my coaches in the league, they know who I am. They know our style. I think we switched up a couple things philosophically. Like in particular now, we're a zone team. And coming from Amherst, where we play a lot of man-to-man,
yeah,
I pride myself on my man-to-man defense. The personality of this year's team is a zone team, and it just seemed to fit. So I think, the cat's out of the bag, and they know who I am, but I think also it's the pieces have just morphed into better basketball players.
I think Dave Hickson's going to disown you. You guys have fun. I mean, the SUNYAC has fun in general. The games I've caught, you always see the coaches, if they're not riding or an official, they're having a good laugh. I've seen you guys have conversations before games. Nothing beats watching Jason Leon talking to a head coach of the opponent 3 minutes before tip-off, and it was a 5-minute conversation. You take fun to a whole nother level. you have found a way to sneak in a special tie into the games, one with your daughter on it. I'm sure she's thrilled. I'm sure your wife rolls her eyes just a little bit. But where is the inspiration behind this tie that maybe every coach should go and purchase?
I got that tie for Christmas, and I have a 19-month-old daughter, and I love her to pieces. So I had to find a way to integrate it, and what better game to integrate it at than Geneseo, a team that historically we haven't had much success against. So it was weird looking down and seeing my daughter on my chest, but it was nice to have her on the sidelines. That's for sure.
I have it on good authority. You got a technical foul in that game because of the tie.
If it was because of the tie, then I'll agree to the technical. But for whatever reason, the referee said it wasn't.
Obviously, it's tough. Those winters up there hasn't been as tough in some parts of the state as it has been others. You do have road games ahead here. How important is it to have Mother Nature a little bit on your side in some cases?
It's huge. For us in the SUNYAC conference, we're on the tip of we're an hour north of New York City, so we're kind of on the tip of the conference as far as geographically.
Right.
So we're going out to Fredonia, and that's going to be a 7-hour road trip. So we're kind of used to being on a bus. Like the Roanoke trip, 10 hours, that was nothing. So we got
to talk about the fact it took you 10 hours, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, well, maybe 11. Maybe embellish a little.
Still slow.
All right, well then 14.
Slow.
Yeah, we're used to it. We kind of plan ahead. I'm used to going to places in this conference where it seems every time I'm there, it's cloudy. There's flurries in the air. I'm used to that. But I think for us as a team, because we're so used to it, it makes us mentally tough and ready for the unexpected, because there has been times like against Cortland the other night, we showed up 40 minutes prior to game time, and for a coach that has OCD and likes his things in order, I was going crazy. But I think, the bus rides and weather, it is what it is. My guys are mentally tough to handle the adversity. But obviously I want to drive out to Fredonia, and I want it to be 50 degrees and sunny. Somehow I don't think it's going to happen.
Something tells me this year in the Buffalo area, it's anything but 50 degrees and sunny. In fact, if you see the sun, you might want to buy a lottery ticket.
Trust me, I'm waiting to buy that lottery ticket for 4 years.
Awesome. Hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show. Certainly appreciate you talking about the Hawks and how well you guys are doing this season. Obviously, big test still ahead. Don't want to write anything on the wall as of yet, but it's been fun to watch so far, including the tie. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are watching?
Well, I just want to say thanks, Dave, for all that you do for D3. It's great to have you kind of as our flag bearer, and it's awesome to get to talk about myself and our program here that we're building at New Paltz. And in true fashion, I will sign off saying, I love you, Grace, and I love you, Kimmy Rainiac, my wife.
Very well done, sir. You get brownie points, I'm sure, if she's figured out how to watch it. So thank you so much. Take care of yourself. Safe travels on the roads ahead, obviously, and we'll look forward to watching the Hawks the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
Mike Rainiac joining us here from New Paltz. Appreciate him taking the time to do so. When we come back, plenty more Hoopsville. Of course, you can interact with us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or using the hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You're watching Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate, in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
And to have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. On this Thursday evening is when we've released the show. Of course, as we've mentioned, all pre-recorded so far. We hope you're enjoying it so far as well. We are at the NCAA convention. Quick note, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, you can follow us there on anything that is impertinent to basketball or anything else in Division III by following us online. Of course, you can ask us questions about guests that we've had on the show or future guests or guest ideas. Tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at d3hoops.com or join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, one of the stories that captured Division III in women's basketball last year was the transfer of Sydney Moss from Division I Florida to Division III Thomas More and the immediate impact that she had on the team. Unfortunately, the team fell short of certainly everyone's goal of winning a national championship last year, but they're back at it this year with Sydney Moss at the helm as well. Team is 13-0 overall, 6-0 in the PAC, sit number 2 in the D3Hoops.com top 25 and pretty much been stuck there due to the fact that the defending national champs refused to lose. But that doesn't mean we don't want to talk about the Thomas More Saints. And so joining us out of the Great Lakes region is their head coach, Jeff Hands, here on Skype. Of course, we should remind everybody we are pre-recording this in case anybody is curious. They do have a game against Geneva that will take place after we talk to them. But, Coach, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you having us on.
Absolutely. You've got to be thrilled with how your team is playing yet again this season. In the last 2 years, you're now 44-1, and certainly tearing it up. But we'll talk about Sydney in a bit. But the team has had to step up in some cases and in some ways to kind of help Sydney out and get these wins themselves.
Yeah, it's a total team effort. It's a new group from last year. We lost 2 really good senior guards that meant a lot to the program, for one of them 5 years and the other one 4 years. So we're trying to adjust and continue to work to get better.
When you look at how this team has responded, as you pointed out, and are 13-0 at this point in time in the season, and you've played some pretty good teams, certainly NCAA tournament teams like Maryville to start the season. You had a scare with Cabrini we'll talk about in a bit. You've had some other games in there. What was the mentality coming into the year after a tough loss, one game away from the Final Four? What was the mentality heading into the season? Jeff, I think
mentality was just to. You still there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Mentality was just trying to build on last season and continue that we had some unfinished business. We felt like that didn't end the way that we wanted to. Just like a lot of other teams, of course. But the injury to Sydney and the way we played at Whitman wasn't a great ending. So we wanted to prepare ourselves as best we could with a tough non-conference schedule. Started right out of the gates with Maryville, and they're 10-1 or 11-1 right now, I think. So that was a good win for us. And we had played a couple NAIA schools, and they present some problems just because of being on scholarship, and the length that they have will hopefully prepare us for the rest of our conference season, and then that NCAA run if we have that opportunity.
Yeah, you point out the schedule. I mean, you also played Center and La Roche, Waynesburg, Westminster in Division III. Of course, you went to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Cabrini, who I nicknamed on the last show the nearly Giant Killers. who had taken out Scranton in their previous game, nearly took you guys out. Is that the kind of game that you almost need in a season like this? You almost need a wake-up call, as it were?
Yeah, I think so. And Cabrini does a very good job. I mean, that's a really good team, and we were very fortunate to be able to pull that one out. Sydney made a play there at the end to get us ahead by one with about 25 seconds left to go, and you know, and then we got a stop on the defensive end, and you know, that's one of those games right after Christmas down there. It sets it up like an NCAA tournament without the atmosphere because of the crowd. But, I mean, neutral site, both of us had to travel, you know, one day of practice at the facility. And so it was really good, and I think it helped our team because then we bounced back and the next day and beat Plattsburgh State we played better against Plattsburgh State, I'll put it that way, and you know, they're going to have a good season as well. So it was 2 good games down there in San Juan for us.
Yeah, the other thing, interesting enough, that was your only below 10-point victory against a Division III opponent this year. You've had 2 total less than 10 points. You certainly know how to control your opponents in some senses of the word. What's been the secret this year? Certainly you have offense, but is the defense improved, or are you still relying on the offensive weapons that you have?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like our defense isn't as good, but then it's, you know, we're giving up under 50 points a game. So hopefully we can continue that. I don't know if we can or not because it just seems like teams get a lot of good looks against us. You know, Cabrini took full advantage of that when we played, and Cumberland's down in Southern Kentucky, the NAI school that we beat, did as well. You know, so our offensive firepower, it's younger players trying to figure out how to play offense and do those type of things, and our defense is probably ahead of our offense right now, and hopefully we can catch up and be a balanced team.
What's interesting is this is a team that is young. You pointed out you lost a number of seniors. You only have 2 seniors on this squad. Anybody who's curious, Sydney Moss still has a whole nother season ahead of her as well. You're led by Sydney at 22 points a game. She's hauling in 8 rebounds a game, handing out 3.5 assists a game. Nikki Kierman, thank you, a freshman. Abby Owings, a freshman, both averaging 10 points a game. You get to the senior in Sydney Wainscott, who's 7.5 points a game, but then you're back to juniors again in Sam Cady and Alexa Santa Maria. You don't have what I would classify as that core group of scoring threats that you're necessarily going to use. You guys have very nicely rebuilt, as it were.
Yeah, it's our 2 freshmen have come in, and Abby's our point guard, and she's been our point guard from day one of being here October 15th, and she's done a really good job of adjusting to what we want to do. And Nikki Kiernan had an injury setback, so her first game was against Cabrini down there in San Juan. She played in our 2 scrimmages and then got injured in the next practice, so she had missed 5 or 6 weeks altogether, and she's starting to figure out how things are done, how we want things done, and how she can be successful. But so those are 2 big pieces, and both have a very bright future for us. And our junior class, led by Sydney, and then Olivia Huber coming off the bench as a guard. She's an All-American soccer player for our women's team. And then Alexa and Sam, like you mentioned, are doing a little bit more scoring, and Olivia does more of the defensive effort.
It's hard to talk about this team without talking about Sydney Moss. Obviously, it is one of those great moments for a coach when you get a player like her to be able to join your squad, and she seemed to join the team seamlessly last year. Of course, the season ended for her when the season ended for the team with a tough injury in that Elite Eight game. That's torn ACLs are tough to recover from. She was ready to, cleared to play at the beginning of the season, but from what I'm gathering, she's just starting to get her stride, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, she's about 10 months from surgery now. So, doctor told her it'd be 9 to 12 months before she felt normal, and she's working her way back in shape. It's, it's one of those injuries that, unfortunately, in our game we see all the time, and it's devastating. You hate it for the young ladies, and especially, I'm biased because of Sydney being here, especially her because of her potential and what she can do and what she brings to the table. but she's starting to get back into form, and she's hasn't been pressed, I guess, to score all the time, maybe like she did last year. And so, she's kind of just taking a back seat to some of these freshmen and juniors and just playing. She's playing hard and she's doing what we ask her to do, trying to get back into shape.
Has it been hard with the spotlight, as it were? She comes in, she's the player of the year in Division III for D3Hoops.com. She certainly is the attention of every single offense, or defense, I should say, of every team. But more than that, she's this former SEC player who is certainly doing extremely well in Division III, and that garners national attention as well. Has it been hard to still adjust, or have you guys adjusted to that spotlight?
No, we adjusted. I mean, it's been a year. Over a year and a half now. So, I mean, she's used to it. Our team is used to it. It's one of those things that we accept. She's so humble. She's such a good person that, it doesn't faze her at all.
As we point out, this is a pre-recorded interview. You will take on Geneva between the time this is done and the time the interview airs. But ahead of you, coming up, is St. Vincent, who you guys are tied with in conference action. They're 12-1 overall, 6-0 as we speak in conference play. Washington Jefferson lurking behind you guys. Is this a two-horse race for this conference? Is it going to come down to you guys in St. Vincent, and thus this game coming up this weekend is pretty important?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean we've had Waynesburg on the road and we've had Washington Jefferson on the road, so they got to come back down here. But those two teams can always make enough shots to challenge anybody. But St. Vincent, their one loss is to Chicago up at Hope's post-exam tournament, I guess what they call it. And then Chicago had a UAA good program, so that's their only loss on the season. So Saturday's going to be a big day for us.
Of course, you'll finish the season with a game at St. Vincent as well. So certainly, either team is going to be looking for some kind of payback, whether it's you guys or St. Vincent, depending on the outcome on Saturday. But this is a conference that's got the good teams like yourself and St. Vincent and certainly others. It's also got some of those teams that aren't as good. You beat Teal 101-41, for example. You beat Grove City 86-31. How tough is it to get a team focused when you have such a wide range of games in the sense of the challenge you're going to face, whether it's going to be a team that's going to be maybe pretty easy to play against versus a team like St. Vincent who might be able to play with you one-on-one?
We don't really talk about that too much. We want to approach every game the same, and that's easy for me to say, but it's tough for our kids to do sometimes. But that's what we try to do, because once you start trying to get really hyped up for one game and the other one's just an okay atmosphere, or no atmosphere, then you let your guard down and something happens, that you don't want as a coach and you don't want as a team. So we try to keep everything even keel and keep things rolling.
Interestingly enough, this region has certainly become a pretty good region in women's basketball. Hope is ranked 11th. Obviously, you guys are ranked 2nd. Calvin is 14th. And I don't want to forget DePaul at 13th right now in the top 25. John Carroll is sitting at 21. Maryville, while in the South, is right near you guys at 22. This has become a rather interesting region to watch. Conceivably, you're probably on top of the region when it comes to rankings at this point in time. But how important is it going to be to secure as much home court advantage as you can should you make the NCAA tournament, to try and have teams come through you before you'll head to Calvin for the championship weekend?
It's very important. I mean, I think we found that out last year when we had sent out the Whitman out there for Sweet 16 Elite 8 games, the sectional round. You want to have that chance to play in front of your home crowd as much as possible. And, the regional rankings start coming out here in, I guess, probably about 4 weeks. So, those will be very important to see where everybody's at. And hopefully we've done enough with our non-conference schedule to play enough teams to help our strength of schedule out.
When you look at this region, certainly you run into the coaches when you're recruiting in some senses, and you certainly talk to them when you're looking at scheduling. How much has changed? I know you're only in your 4th season, but it's changed quickly in this region.
Yeah. I mean, DePaul's always there. Hope, Calvin. So we're just trying to get as many good games. I know, like next year we're going to go to Calvin. We're going to go to Illinois Wesleyan. We're going to go up to Denison. For our Julie Costello Memorial Classic. Ohio Northern's coming down. Center's coming up, and Hanover. So the scheduling it's always a challenge. And but we just want to go play and see what happens.
Let me put you on the spot a little bit, and I say a little tongue-in-cheek. A lot of people after the season went, "Oh, Sydney Moss is transferring. That's it. She's done. She did her 1 year." Not asking whether that's true or not. I just want to take a twist on it. If it were to come up in conversation, what would have been your pitch to say, "Hey, stay with us. We got something special here"?
Well, to be honest with you, Dave, we had that little talk about it. I just told her she's got to go where she's happy. She came here for the academics, the small classes, and basketball for her was really second fiddle to it. I mean, it was about getting a degree in 4 years and not sitting out to Division I level. So all the reasons that she came here the first time around were still here over the summer. And you wouldn't believe the number of people in the Northern Kentucky community, Cincinnati area that thought that same exact thing. They thought she was 1 year, then she was heading somewhere else. And even people at the restaurants here were like, "She's still back." I'm like, "Well, yeah, she's still here for us." So, but she's having a good time. She's playing. She's just a young lady, and that's what it's all about. And that's what that's how we try to treat things here at Thomas More.
You talk about the Northern Kentucky, I should say, Cincinnati area. Of course, the headlines coming out of there in Division III women's basketball and all of college basketball, to be completely honest, is Lauren Hill. We got her jersey over our shoulder. Have you felt the impact of that story since you guys are relatively close to that story? Has there been an impact, or is it one of those you guys are just watching on the sideline like the rest of us?
A little bit of both. We went over there before they played the game November 2nd against Hiram. Our players wanted to do something, so we took the jersey over, and Lauren was not able to make it there that day because she had a busy day the day before. Sure. So she wasn't, she's a little tired, was not able to get up that early, needed some rest. But just like everybody else, you hate to hear it. I mean, It's just a sad story, but she's been a great motivator to a lot of people around the country, and it's hats off to Lauren and Mount St. Joe and what they've done over there.
It's not often that I could say that in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, in women's basketball, especially in the Division III level, that Sydney Moss would be outshined by anybody for what she does on the floor. But certainly Lauren Hill here, and I'm sure you guys would agree, there's nothing wrong with that in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, there's no doubt. I agree 100% with you.
Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Listen, I'm fascinated to watch what you guys do the rest of the season, especially with what looks like a very talented St. Vincent squad that you're going to have to face. And, of course, you don't want to look past a Washington Jefferson, even a Bethany or a Grove City. You never know in conference play. But before we let you go, we always do like to get the final word from the coach. So any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
I just want to thank you and Pat, everything you guys do for Division III basketball, men's and women's, and we don't take anything that you guys do for granted. We appreciate all your hard work and support.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll look forward to seeing how the team performs.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Take care. Jeff Hands joining us from the number 2 Thomas More Saints. Again, the team will have played Geneva by the time we're talking to you here, or you're seeing this interview, but they do have St. Vincent on the docket ahead as well. When we come back, we'll switch gears, but stay with women's basketball. We'll jump out to Mid-Atlantic, talk to a coach who's closing in on win number 500 in her 34th season. We'll talk McDaniel women's basketball here on Hoopsville. If you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville. Use the hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at d3hoops.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You're listening to Hoopsville. We'll be back with more right after this.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
And welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. We're obviously pre-recorded tonight as I'm at the NCAA convention, but at the same time, I'm on camera here with a coach, which means we're on site. We're here at McDaniel, and I'm joined by Becky Martin, the 34th season here at McDaniel. And Coach, talking to you, you hear a basketball game in the background. It's a men's game. You guys coming off a win with Swarthmore. We should also point out that by the time this airs, you may have already played your game against Franklin and Marshall as well. You are closing in on win number 500. That's one topic, but the other thing is you guys are now 11-1 as we talk, 6-1 in the Centennial. The hot start continues for this Green Terror basketball team. Congratulations on the good start.
Thank you very much. That means, the kids they're responding to everything we say. They're working hard. It's going to be a fun year no matter what happens because they're good kids and they want to continue to improve. So, as a coaching staff, we're elated. For myself personally, that means I've only had one sleepless night so far.
Wow, just one. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You guys got off to a 9-0 start on the season, which was the best in school history. Certainly took advantage of some home court to do that as well, but you also hit the road and had to win some tough games, especially early on in Centennial play. You're now in this stretch, we talked about it before air, where you're in this 3-game stretch here of Centennial, non-Centennial games that you got to keep the team a little bit sharp on because some big tests are coming up ahead.
Well, as we go into these teams, these contests, one, after 34 years, you learn early on, you never take anyone for granted.
Sure.
On any given day, anything can happen. And I don't want to say that we're playing through these teams, we're not, but we're going to continue to push hard and try to work on some new things and sharpen some things. And, no matter what team is out there on the court, they're always bringing something different that we have to adjust to and be able to execute a little better, and that happened tonight. Even though you look at the score, it looks like it was an easy game. The kids played well, but there were still some things that we hadn't seen that we had to make the adjustments on the fly with, and the kids responded.
Of course, the big game right before this, you beat Haverford, who's a 500 team, but they just knocked them to 5-1 in the Centennial to keep you in a 3-way tie at the top of the conference. You then played Swarthmore, as we point out. You'll have Franklin and Marshall. You then have Bryn Mawr, which is not technically a conference game,
Correct.
but is a conference opponent. Before you then hit a tough stretch here, you'll get Gettysburg at home, Ursinus, and then Hopkins. So my question is, you got these 3 that you want to fight through and keep their focus on, but then how do you raise their expectations and raise their mental preparedness for then 3 tough games?
Well, I could talk as a sports psychologist, but the reality is it's Gettysburg. They're our rival. It's Hopkins. They're our rival. For us, at that point, it's honestly trying to keep them calm and not, their anxiety level, over the top. They're going to get up for that game. That's not going to be an issue. We're not going to have to worry about them getting up for those opponents. We have to make sure that we clean some things up because when you're playing a team that maybe isn't as strong, you're able to get away with some things that you're not going to be able to get away with successfully against Hopkins, against Gettysburg, and even Ursinus. So other than that, I'm not worried about them getting up, for that. And the first game here against Gettysburg, that's nice that it's at home.
Now, interesting twist, too. You'll have played Franklin and Marshall already your second time. In the middle of that, you'll play Ursinus your second time. You've got wins over them already. Whereas you'll face Gettysburg for the first time. You'll face Johns Hopkins for the first time. Is that also a little bit of a different approach? You've seen some teams and you haven't seen the others?
Well, it is to a degree, because as we go into some of these teams a second time, we're trying to change things up again, just a little bit, so that, they have to make some adjustments to us. And you're right, when we're seeing Hopkins and Gettysburg for the first time, we're not quite sure how we're going to match up and how they're going to adjust to our offense and how we have to adjust to their offense defensively. So, we get through it the first time. Hopefully our battle plan is ready to go, and may the best team win that night.
Sure. When you look at this conference, we're not that far removed from when this was 4 or 5 horse race to the very end. You were getting 3-4 teams in the NCAA tournament. Then it hit a lull where things kind of subdued a little bit. You really only are getting 1 team into the conference. You got 3 teams right now at the top. You got a couple more right behind. This is lining up like potentially Gettysburg, Muhlenberg, Hopkins, McDaniel, even Haverford in the mix.
It's going to be a fight to the finish, and the parity in our conference, it's scary because on any given night anything can happen, and we dealt with that last week with Muhlenberg. Muhlenberg was a tough game on the road, and they beat us fair and square, but we are also, part of getting through a season is also the luck of the draw. We had a couple kids dealing with the flu, so you're not at par. So part of it is, are you at 100% when you get on the court so that everything's even? And at this time of the year and with a long season, you have to be able to get by those hurdles. So we're looking forward to seeing Muhlenberg again down here. Hopefully we have a better showing. But every time you step on the court with our conference foes, and people say, well, who's your most, in terms of your rival, who's your biggest rival? I'd say, well, it's Hopkins, Gettysburg, Dickinson, F&M, Haverford.
Everybody.
Everybody, because with 5 teams getting in the conference playoffs, and the parity the way it is, you've got to play to the finish. Or you might not be one of those teams, even though you've beaten the top teams.
And interesting, of course, Gettysburg right down the road. Technically, Hopkins right down the road. The other ones might not be down the road, but they're within an easy drive, so it certainly makes those relationships. You see the coaches more than just on the court. You're seeing them in the recruiting battles as well.
Oh, most definitely. We love to tie to one another. It's like, oh, hi, what are you doing? Oh, it's like, oh, Busman's holiday. Oh, and I won't say
you're here.
It's like,
darn it.
So, you actually got off the golf course to come recruit. Isn't that nice? Nice to see you.
Nice.
So, yeah, I
Playful.
think we have a good relationship within our conference.
Let's talk about your team a little bit. You're deeper than maybe people realize. And in my opinion, it may be based on the fact you had a major injury to a major player that took Winger out for a while. Winger's only averaging 3.4 points a game, but 5 rebounds a game. But it's allowed some other players like Alyssa March to step up to the table a little bit. You're being led by, forgive me as I quickly look at the name, Nichols. Lindsay Nichols at nearly 20 points a game. Perez is having a great year at 12.5.
Well, we knew coming into this season from a guard perspective, we had 2 of the top 3-point shooters in the conference. So that gives you, that really stretches the defense out. So that's helped us this year, and Lindsay's coming on strong as a junior. We knew she was going to be, a talent, and she's finally matured, and she's strong. She can shoot the 3, take it hard to the hoop, and it's fun to watch her mature. Emma, unfortunately, as a senior, ended up with one of those ankle sprains that she's out 5 weeks, and it was gut check time, for a junior who had seen some playing time but was still trying to develop and make the transition to college ball, and she was ready. She worked hard over the summer. She came in and she did what we asked of her, and she's ready to go. One of the things I said that I'm excited about is I don't have 2 posts that are ready to start. I have 3 posts that can start, and another post who was injured all last year that's coming on and doing some neat things. So as a coach, when you have that versatility and that depth, it makes things so much easier because we all know some nights the balls fall for you when you shoot, and sometimes they don't. If they're not shooting for you, somebody else has to step up, and that's not always the case, and I think we have that luxury to a degree this year.
And again, you talk about that 3-headed option, really. I mean, Carly Zepp You're a sophomore at 5'10", who stepped up in scoring double figures.
5'10" if she's on her tippy toes.
Well, but it's listed at 5'10", so we'll have some fun with it. I agree with you. We have that fun with the stats.
But she can jump out of the gym, and that's the difference.
But then you get Emma Winger, and you got Alyssa March, both listed at 6 foot. You definitely have, that was something that you've had in Winger, certainly, but as you point out, that's a depth that you haven't had in a few years, and has that changed the dynamic of what you guys can do on offense?
Most definitely, because you're no longer looking for somebody to go in and spell somebody. You're looking for somebody that can go in and actually maybe raise the bar or bring something new to the level of play.
And I don't want to take anything away also from your point guard and Brittany Davis. Certainly has settled things down at the point. You seem to, and if memory serves from last year, correct me if I'm wrong, you seem to have a bit of a platoon in that position. Even Perez had to play a lot of point guard. This year, Davis is doing it, and then you got Jasmine Smith, who's taking over for her when necessary.
Brittany Davis is one of those young women who, she may not be flashy and she may not be scoring double figures, but she sees the court so well. She plays within herself, she's smart, she anticipates, and she knows her teammates. She's one of the few point guards where we'll basically give her the leeway to call certain offenses, or she'll see something out there and it's like, if you see it, go with it, it's okay. And most coaches don't like to relinquish control, but again, as a junior, we're giving her that option to say, okay, go with what you see. If you want to make an adjustment, call it. It's fine.
Back to the 500th. When we're talking, you're at about 498.
Prefer not to talk about that.
I know, but that's my job. I got to bring it up.
You caught me off guard on this.
This is the good part.
Yeah, okay.
What does it mean, though, to be coming in on a milestone as significant as 500 after the years you put into this game?
Well, I can give you the smart aleck answer. It means
Love it.
I'm mature. But the reality is I've been very blessed. This has been a great fit. I've had a great run, and I've been so blessed to have some phenomenal young women to be a part of our program. And again, I've had people that have said in the last couple of years, how can you still stay fresh after so many years? The kids have changed. I'm like, they have. They keep me on my toes. It's all I can do to stay one step ahead. I used to be able to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of them. Now I'm 1 step ahead of them. But again, keep it in perspective. It's still about when you see these young women come in as freshmen and you're a part of that magnificent transformation that takes place from the time they're a freshman to a senior and they walk across the stage and graduate. It's a magnificent transformation, and to be able to be a part of that and watch them grow and help them hopefully be a part of that, those are the days when you realize it's one of the best jobs in the world.
You're only about 300 some odd wins away from what Mike Strong was able to put up, and you're halfway to Pat Summitt. Will we ever see you get to those numbers?
I don't think I'll live that long, but I think by then it's probably time for somebody else to take over the reins. But it has been a great run, and again, I'm a competitor, but it's never really been about what's the win-loss record. It's been about, are they having a good experience? Now, does that mean I don't like to win? Oh, I'm a fierce competitor.
We've seen you on the sideline.
I hate to lose, and I've often said when the time comes that I don't mind losing, then it's time to to step aside, because it is about at the end of the game who won and who didn't, but it's also about helping those kids reach their full potential, and it's been a blast. I have a great staff. We would not be 500 without my staff. I've got a loyal support staff, and Coach P, who's been by my side, and we're like an old married couple that fights back
oil and vinegar
forth.
sometimes.
Yeah, we are, but he's got a great. He's one of the best bench coaches I've ever been around, and he's been with me for 14 years, and we've seen a lot, and it's been a blast. It's been a blast.
Before I let you go, is this an NCAA caliber team?
I think that this is I think it is an NCAA caliber team. I don't want to jinx them, but I don't know that we're going to get an at-large bid. I think we know from the beginning that we've got to get an automatic qualifier. That's our first option. I've been fortunate to have some very talented teams, and we've only had on one occasion when we've been there, gotten to the big dance with an at-large bid. And that was the year we won the conference outright and didn't quite, win the playoffs. But no, I think we can compete with anyone, and we're getting better, and they're smarter, and they're playing well together. My biggest concern is I'm not sure if we get to some of these teams that are bigger. There's a big difference between playing a lineup that 6'2", 6'1", 6 foot, and and you're 5'4", 5'3", 5'8", 6 foot, and 5'9". There's a big difference there. But these kids are scrappy. They're working hard. They're listening. They're the. I don't want to say they're the. They're the train, that little chug up the hill.
Yeah. Train that could.
The train that could, but they had an opportunity against Haverford after that, loss at Muhlenberg to kind of, step back on their heels, and they did. They came out fighting, and they're going to continue to fight. So we'll see. It's going to be fun.
Very good. Becky Martin, 34th season, closing in on 500. They have Franklin Marshall and Bryn Mawr ahead, obviously, before, as we point out, Gettysburg, Ursinus, and Hopkins. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who might tune in?
It's been a blast. If you're in the area, come see us play. We're one of the best games in town, and we're free.
There you go. It is free basketball. Well, thanks so much for joining us. When we come back, plenty more Hoopsville on this special pre-recorded show here on Thursday. You're watching Hoopsville. We'll be back after this.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Certainly had a good show so far. Talked to a number of coaches around the country. And we hope you've enjoyed it so far. Again, we are at the NCAA convention, so this show was entirely pre-recorded. We'll be back on the air live on Sunday. At least that's the plan. So stick to it. Of course, 7 o'clock Eastern time is when we'll hit the air. And in about a week, some odd time, we will be hopefully on the road to get some basketball games around the country as well. One of the segments we've had on this show over the last few years that has certainly been fun to do is our School of the Week segment. Of course, to be a School of the Week, you got to kind of get our attention when you don't normally are on our radar to begin with. There's 400 and some odd schools in Division III, which means 800 some odd schools in Division III basketball in men and women. It's easy to be on the radar. It's very easy to be off the radar. And so the School of the Week gives us a chance to talk to schools we don't normally get the chance to talk to, and we haven't done that so far this season, so we're bringing it out tonight. And we certainly appreciate our first guest with that. And of course, we'll have some fun at the end. Our first guest and our first School of the Week for this year is Bard, school who is 7-6 overall, and we'll bring in their head coach to talk about the significance of that. Adam Turner joins us here on the show. Adam, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. 7-6 overall. 5 wins last season, 4 wins the season before that. You've had 8 wins once in a season in the last 7-8 odd years. This is a program that certainly does not have winning associated with it for whatever reasons. You guys are 7-6, 2-2 in the Liberty League. Couldn't resist talking to you. You got to be thrilled with how this season has started.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of contrast between. I'm sure a lot of the schools you talk to, 7 and 6, would be somewhat of a disappointing start for some of the more traditional powerhouse schools. But for us, as a basketball program that really is very young, we've only been in the Liberty League 3 years, and really have been NCAA affiliated for just over a decade. So it's been definitely a growing process in my 5 years as the head coach. And 7 and 6 is a phenomenal start. It's the most wins we've had since I've been the head coach, and like you said, it's the most wins we've had, in about a decade. So it's really promising, and one of the, I think, really the biggest things for us is we're so young, and so the best is still to come. Right now we're playing freshmen and sophomores about 75-80% of the minutes that we have. So for us, it's hey, next year and the year after that are going to be really big. And even this year with the way the league is, we can do some pretty special things. We have a huge ceiling. We're nowhere close to where we need to be, but we can get there this year. So I'm excited for it.
Should point out also young is yourself. You're an 06 grad of Bard, and so you're coaching your alma mater and certainly helping kind of achieve where you guys are. Again, 5 wins last season. The fact you're already at 7 wins, forgive the phrase, I've used it on the show before, you could lose the rest of the season and it would still be considered a successful season for the Raptors. I mean, that's maybe a little weird to hear, but that's where you guys are already.
Yeah, it's been crazy to think about, and I think one of the hardest things, especially for the young guys, is they can get very caught up in a lot of the success that they're having in comparison to where we've been, obviously. And it's been fun. We beat Union for the first time in not just our program's history, but in our school's history. Like I said, it's little things like that are a big deal. But at the same time, the potential of our group this year is to play in our conference tournament and, to be a team that's getting better down the stretch and growing as a lot of other teams are plateauing, and hopefully make some noise come, February and March. And you can very easily, and we're kind of seeing that as we found out last night, we lost to RPI, who was 0-4 in league, but a good team, that you can kind of get caught up in your success at times and forget, hey, where have we been and where are we going? And so it's really important for us. I'm trying to take it one day at a time and one game at a time, and keeping the young guys heads on straight, so they're kind of just focused on what they can control, which is today's practice, in all honesty.
When you look at this team, again, you started the season with a loss to Haverford, but then you beat Swarthmore, 2 Centennial teams there, though certainly near the bottom, but especially in Swarthmore trying to improve. You got win over, you played Lehman and played them tight. You played Hamilton, you played them tight. And for, as you point out, if we're talking about another NESCAC school or another Centennial school or somebody else, that's a disappointing loss. The fact you played them tight says a lot. You guys then get a win over Medgar Evers. You get a win over Vassar, a team that I think certainly may be underachieving this year, but for you guys, it's a significant victory. And then you talk about the win over Union. And obviously you're going to see a few of these guys coming back here very soon in conference play. It's got to be driving the confidence with the team.
Yeah, our confidence is high, and I think the guys kind of understand, and they've understood from day one that with our schedule and our league this year, which in all honesty it's just in flux a little bit. We've had a bunch of coaching changes the last few years. A lot of the teams from last year lost very, very key guys. Mm-hmm. And so I told them from day one, our league this year is going to be about, who gets hot late, like a lot of leagues are. And I think with the talent that we have this year, and most importantly, the size, I thought last year, we also had 5 wins going into conference play. And we just had 2 of our 3 big guys get hurt. And the guys on our team felt like, hey, if we had a full front line, we could have competed last year, on a level where we could have been 500 in conference or maybe even a little bit better. But losing the bigs last year hurt us, but it didn't hurt our confidence because the guys coming back felt like, you know what, if we keep everybody healthy, we know we can compete. And then we just kind of had an influx of, really 3-4 young guys, new guys to our program that are playing massive roles. And that kind of an influx, helps a lot. And it made us deeper. We're going 8-9 deep, where in the past we've only been able to really play maybe 4 or 5 guys that can really compete at the level that we need to compete to win Liberty League games. So it's been incredible growth, and I think something that isn't obvious looking at everybody's records and just school kind of standings and leagues is where have different schools been. And for Bard, it's such a big deal because our athletic program's very young. We just built a brand new baseball field. We've added 8 sports in I think the last 6 years, and so the growth here has been tremendous, and it's really been building something. And that's kind of the sell to the recruits that we brought in is, hey, you can come in here and do something where it's never been done. This is a program that since we've become NCAA affiliated, we really haven't had a winning season. We've really done nothing on a national scale other than kind of build it to a place where we're ready for the next step. And that's kind of where we are right now. And it's very exciting.
You look at your roster and who's contributing. You only have 2 seniors on this team. So this is a team certainly poised to continue building on what you've got so far. You also have the all-name team in the sense that I am going to butcher them if I'm not careful. So we're going to maybe stick with just last names here. But Mosley, the freshman, is leading the team at 13.5 points a game, 6.5 rebounds a game, shooting nearly 50% from the floor. And he's also a pretty good free throw shooter at 83%. Burnett, 10.5 points a game. He is your one of your 2 seniors. And he's hauling in on top of that 4.5 rebounds a game. Fabine Scotch, 8.5 points a game. Lichtenstein, which by the way I like. He's only played in 7 games but contributed when he can. Johnson, you go deep into the bench here and talk about guys who are contributing, but the fact that it's a freshman, a senior, and a sophomore are your top 3 guys, I don't know many head coaches who wouldn't love that.
Yeah, and the biggest thing for us is we had 2 guys who didn't play first semester. One was a transfer, and one's another freshman who didn't play. And against Vassar, those 2 guys, combined for over 15 points and 20 combined minutes. And the same thing in the Union game. Those 2 guys had a really big contribution, and you're only going to see their roles increase. Devontae Mosley, who's a freshman, is only going to get better, and he has to get accustomed to the college game. And he kind of struggled the first couple conference games. Still has an impact on the game, but didn't score as much as he had out of conference. And then last night, he had 18 points and looked like the guy that we saw first semester. So, like I said before, the best is really still to come for this group. They haven't gelled yet. We're working in, like I said, 2 pieces that didn't play first semester who haven't played yet with all of our guys. And then, we have 2 seniors and 1 junior who play, who once again only have 10-ish games under their belt with some of these new guys. And so our best basketball is still to come. The biggest thing is we have a group of freshmen and sophomores that are mature beyond their years. I've asked them to lead in a way that I think a lot of programs don't have to ask freshmen and sophomores to lead, and they've really stepped up to the plate. And that's a big reason why we're 7-6, and we could very easily be, have 4 wins instead of 7, very easily. The maturity of the group is what's special, and I think that's what's going to, drive us going forward.
When I look at this, change, as it were, I got to think that it's already making an impact, and you talk about transfers, already making an impact in the recruiting games, as it were. Are you already being able to see a difference in what you're able to talk about and what you're able to entice players with this squad, with already the success you're having this season?
Yeah, I think, more so than even winning tradition, what I've found is recruits and high school players, they want to be a part of something special. They want to feel that when they come on campus. They want to feel like a program's going somewhere, not just that it's been somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we have going for us is that, over the last 2 to 3 years, if you step on campus and come see a practice or, do an overnight as a recruit, I think you feel the energy that's not just behind Bard basketball, but behind Bard athletics. And that's fun. For a young kid that's 17, 18, they're having a lot of schools recruit them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of schools that are highly successful and have been to some big places. But there's not many that can say, hey, our athletic program's about 10 years old. You can come in here and be a pioneer and be a guy that, can do something over 4 years that's never been done in a place and walk away and put a banner on a wall that doesn't exist. And that's why guys like Devontae and even Cy, our senior 4 years ago, that's why they bought in here. They wanted to come and build something and do it in kind of their own likeness and put their own fingerprints all over it. And that's it's kind of the biggest, I think, selling point we have is, do you want to be somebody who 20 years from now can look back at your college career and go, look where Bard College is now, and who did that? Well, I did that. And I always kind of liken it to the Duke players of the early '80s and Coach K's first few years. And I think they had 10 wins in Coach K's first year. By the time they left, they were number one in the country, had gone to Final Fours, and they didn't win a national title, but they were the guys who laid the foundation. And so that's kind of where we are. We're laying the foundation for, I hope, what is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, something that you want to call me because we have 20 wins every year, and we can talk about the guys that started it 4 or 5 years ago.
When you talk about this conference and the coaches that you have, you kind of hinted on it that it took a bit of a hit this year. Last year Hobart led the way, 22-7, 13-3 in the conference. Vassar made its appearance known, 19-8, 10-6. They were tied with Rochester Tech and Clarkson and Skidmore, all at 10-6 in the conference, all with winning records. This year, the conference is fascinating. You got Skidmore on top in conference play at 4-0 at 7-5. Clarkson is 9-2, 2-0 in conference play. Union, who you pointed out you guys beat, 8-5, 2-2. Rochester Tech 6-5, 2-2. You guys 7-6, 2-2. Hobart 6-5, 1-1 after a major coaching change there. Vassar struggling at 5-7, 1-2. What do we make of this conference this year?
I've been saying from day one, just looking at the results in the non-conference play, it's going to be a year where, there's going to be some random results. It's not always going to make sense. Things aren't always going to, connect when you look at the scores. It's going to be about who plays well on any given night. And to me, it's really going to be about, which team comes together in late January, who gels here in the next 2 to 3 weeks and starts playing really great basketball come February. Because you look at the standings, and other than Skidmore, who, by the way, coached by Joe Burke, I think one of the best Division III coaches in the country, in my opinion, they should be. I mean, they lost to Babson on a really rough last-second shot. It was it was like 0.6 seconds left. The ball was tipped. The clock wasn't started. Babson's number 15 in the country. They could have easily beaten them. I think they lost to Williams in a tight one. So, I mean, Skidmore could be an at-large team if a couple things had gone their way. They're very, very good. They killed us at their place, and to me, they're a shoo-in for our conference tournament, and they have, very, very good players in their upper class, in their junior and senior class. So, to me, they're in. Everyone else, even, RPI, who now is 1-4 in league, it's up in the air. It's going to be who plays well. 500 is going to get you into the league playoffs, in my opinion. So, for us especially, it's about, let's figure this thing out one game at a time. Let's not overreact to any one win or any one loss. And I'm sure the other coaches have kind of the same approach, with a bunch of new guys implementing new systems, or older guys who have been there 4, 5, 6 years, implementing their system with new guys. So it's crazy. It's definitely a league to kind of look out for. And there's going to be, I'm sure, a bunch of buzzer beaters, a bunch of overtime games that come down to the last, few seconds, and we'll see where it all falls out in February.
Of course, you're not the only young gun in this conference. BJ Dunn, who's 4 years behind you by graduation, is head coach at Vassar. So it's got to be interesting to have that kind of youth in the conference as well.
Yeah, and Chris Murphy's the head coach at Union. I think he graduated either in 05 or 06, right around when I did. So it's definitely some young coaches, some guys who are getting their first coaching jobs. At RPI, you have Mark Gilbride, who's been in the league for years at Clarkson, now over at RPI. It's fun. There's a lot of energy. We all get along, and they're phenomenal coaches. They know the game. They put a ton of work into it, have a ton of respect for what they're doing with their programs. And when I came in, it was interesting. It seemed to be a league full of some old vets, with Mike Neer and Bob Montana at Union. Yeah. And now it's kind of gone the other way, where it's a really youthful league in terms of coaches and guys that are, in my opinion, future stars in the coaching business. And you're going to see, I think, multiple of them at the highest level of coaching here in the next decade. So some great coaches in our league.
I don't know if it's points for you or against you, but if you take a picture of Dunn and yourself and put them next to each other, you still look like the young guy. So
I get it. I get it all the time. It's we'll walk into a gym. Like I think we walked into Skidmore, and the facility coordinator who was welcoming us said, hey, is your coach here? I said, yeah, I'm the coach. I said, no, you're head coach. And I was like, no, that's me too. So
yeah,
I still get that all the time. I'm 31, and people say I look like a player. So I guess
it means you'll stay young longer.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Hey, part of the School of the Week and the part of the fun we have is we get to ask a few trivia questions of our guest, if you don't mind. If you don't, I hope you have some enjoyment of this. It's about your school. It's about your program. It's about your athletic department. It could be anything about that. It's a Bard related. Now, you being an alum, you have a little bit of a leg up sometimes versus some other coaches who do this. But that doesn't mean they might not be difficult. I will thank your SID Jim for helping me with these. There are a couple that are some doozies. And there are a couple that if you get wrong, you might not be able to walk into practice later. I'm just saying that now. So if you don't mind, can we have a little fun with you?
Yeah, let's do it. I think I got 3 of 5 last time I was on. So I'm just
okay.
trying to
All right. Well, let's see how this works out then. Last time you were on, by the way, you should point out we had you on a great couple years ago talking about a great fundraiser where you took your shoes off. Really, we keep the shoes on. All right. Coaches versus cancer with sneakers. Totally fine.
Yeah.
All right.
And the Samaritan's feet with no shoes and smell. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice. It's nice and all, but come on. All right. So here's your first question. In what year was the school founded, and what was it called when it was founded?
I was a tour guide, so I have a little leg up.
Oh, see, that's not fair.
1860, and it was called St. Stephen's.
You're correct. If I had known this. If it was renamed, by the way, Bard in 1934 in honor of its founder, John Bard, you probably would have gotten that too.
Got it, yeah.
I have a feeling a couple of these are going to go your way, being a former tour guide.
We'll see. We'll see what Jim has in store.
Let's see. Number 2, Bard's athletic mascot is the Raptor, which, by the way, is pretty cool. Not that I see many Raptors on the Hudson. What are the 2 previous athletic nicknames the teams have had, or the program has had, before they became the Raptors?
Wow, 2. I know 1.
Okay, well that's
before we were the Raptors, it was the Blazers.
Okay, you got that, but we're looking for the other one.
Wow, yeah, he's gonna get me on this. It has to be from like the early 20s. Bard used to compete in football against Yale and Harvard back in like the 20s. It used to be like an Ivy League football school, which is crazy. The Saints.
Wow, pulling that out of your
St. Stephen's Saints. That's got to be what.
Wow, that is it. And now the funny thing is, he writes Saints back at the turn of the century. I should have emailed him back and said, which century?
Yeah.
Then they became the Blazers, and now the Raptors. Yeah. All right, so I'm less confident that you're not going to get all of these. Name the Bard graduate whose amazing career began on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, Chevy Chase.
Yes. See, this is why I have very little confidence that you're not going to get all of these now.
See, I hope. 3 for 5. It was a bad.
Well, that's average. That's average. We're looking for 4 now. 4 for 4 if you can here. Name the jazz rock band founded at Bard, which produced numerous hits before you might have been born in the 1970s.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't born, but I listened to Steely Dan.
Dang, you're 4 for 4. All right, the next one.
My old school, right? That was about Bard.
Yeah, I know. This is bad. This is bad. We should have talked to Jim a little bit clearer about your tour guiding days. Number 5. This one's tricky. Which athletic program at Bard has won the most conference games since the Raptors joined the Liberty League in the fall of 2011?
That's going to be a pretty easy one, I think. There's only been 2 other wins in the Liberty League for our athletic program so far, and we're going to amend that here in the next couple of years. But we've actually had the fortune of winning, I think, 5 of them, five games. So us, men's basketball.
Yeah, it's men's basketball. 5 for 5. I thought those were going to be tough until I heard the words, I used to be a tour guide here.
The first couple were tough. The first couple, I don't think most alums would have gotten. So I'm proud of myself for those.
Pulling the Saint out was pretty impressive. Now, if Jim's behind the scenes giving you the answers, I'm going to have a long conversation. No, I didn't think he was. Well, thanks so much for playing along. 5 for 5 is pretty rare, to be honest with you. I don't think it happens more than once a year. So the first one out of the gate, 5 for 5, not too bad. Congratulations on that. Hopefully that translates on to Rochester Tech, who you'll take on Friday before then taking on Hobart. And, of course, Clarkson and St. Lawrence, I should say, head home before that rematch with Union and Skidmore in the future. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, thanks for doing this, Dave. I think the program is great. Any exposure that we can get as Division III coaches and teams, I think is just phenomenal because we play such you hear it all the time, but such a pure form of basketball. And I think for somebody who really loves the game, watching a Division III basketball game is beautiful. I'm on D3 Hoops all the time watching live streams, when our team isn't playing and after our season's ended, I'm watching tournament games and conference tournament games. And so I just love what you guys do. I listen to the program all the time and keep it up, and I appreciate it.
Very good. Well, thank you for the kind words, sir. Appreciate it myself. 7-6 on the season. Looking forward to watching how the Raptors do the rest of the season.
Thank you, sir.
As Coach Adam Turner from Bard. Again, team 7-6 overall, 2-2 in Liberty League Conference play. We pointed out Rochester Tech and Hobart on the road coming up this weekend. They'll then take on Clarkson and St. Lawrence the following weekend at home. And then the following weekend, the last one in January, they'll take on Union and Skidmore also at home. Of course, lots more to play after that. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, also to give you an idea of what we'll be watching at the NCAA convention. That's all coming up here on Hoopsville. If you want to interact with us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Facebook us at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. More Hoopsville right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
And the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this pre-recorded show that we put together. I want to thank all of our guests who've been on the show, from Chapman's Mike McHugh, from Bukowski, I should say, Mike Rainiak from New Paltz. Of course, want to thank Coach Hans from Thomas More, Becky Martin from McDaniel, and, of course, Adam Turner from Bard. Appreciate them taking the time to join us on the show. Before we wrap up the show, should point out what we are going to be doing at the NCAA convention. There's a lot of items on the table, and I'm not going to be able to name them all right now, but certainly ones that affect basketball, but Division III on the whole, from financial to recruiting to scheduling. Again, can't cover them all, but we certainly will tackle a few of them. Some of them to keep in mind, recruiting, for example, they're looking to allow Division III coaches to start talking to students at the end of their sophomore years of high school versus the current rule, which is junior. Also looking to, let's say there's a basketball event going on, it's over the course of 3 days, and the Division III coach can only show up on the first day. And the rules as they exist now, that coach cannot talk to that recruit until the event is over, which means trying to find a time to make a phone call or whatnot, and they might not be able to attend that last day. They're looking to change that rule that you can talk to a recruit during that window of time of the event is taking place, not necessarily waiting until it is all over. There's some pluses and minuses of that, but I certainly think it's a good one. Another one is signing a letter of intent that is completely non-binding. The idea being more of a promotional type thing, PR type thing, or for, let's say, those student athletes in small towns, it's a big deal for them to say where they're going and, pretend they're like a D1 guy and put a hat on or whatever they want to do. But it's a non-binding letter. It's more for pomp and circumstance. Certainly something I think would be nice. Another recruiting idea is whether to allow, when a recruit is on a visit, to put them through a skills test, for lack of a better description. Lots of pluses and minuses to that. Insurance concerns, but also the fact that students in Division III are looked upon about looking at a school for the school and not being trying out for a coach. So there's a lot of debate over those things, and we'll certainly be covering those debates and discussing what might happen at the votes. Furthermore, we also have financial decisions to make, especially on the championship side of things, whether a reduction of about 10% to travel parties will be approved. That 10% reduction will not affect student athletes because the same number of student athletes will travel. Basketball, there's 12, for example, but it will reduce the amount of support staff that the NCAA is paying for. It does not mean that support staff can't still travel. The schools would just have to pick up the bill themselves. Another idea in the championships is getting rid of or knocking down the per diem to about $90 a day for student athletes. It was supposed to be supposed to be $100 this year. It usually goes up $5 a year. It is frozen at $95 right now. They think there's a good savings if it goes down to $90. Also getting rid of the per diem, the half-day per diem, basically. So if it's at $95, it's like $47.50 right now for those who are the home team hosting the event. Just getting rid of their per diem in general. Pluses and minuses to all of this, and certainly will be discussed. There's other budgetary ideas out there, including giving a 3-day window between the championship bracket being announced and when a team can first travel. That will have a little bit of an effect in Division III basketball, especially on the men's side where they got the Thursday game. That might have to move to Friday. How that all plays out is to be determined because it has to be voted on first. Obviously will not happen for this year. This would be down the road as well. And some other factors. So those we'll keep in mind as well. And then there's the 10%. Now, it may not even, reduction in games. It may not even be voted on at the convention at all. As of me talking about this, I don't know the answer. It is on the docket because once it's there, it's there. They might go and say, listen, this is not going to be voted on. We're going to rescind it. They might go and say, we're going to vote on it. Or I should say they're going to vote on it, but everybody who supported it has pulled their support back. That usually ends up meaning that the vote will be basically null and void. People will vote, but there won't be any push to vote against it or for it. It'll basically get voted down in overwhelming fashion. And then the other option is it votes as it should have normally. There were some gender equity issues about this. Basketball would have been affected by losing one game and one scrimmage. Other sports could have lost up to 4 games. Again, don't know if this will be voted on. It's certainly the topic of conversation in Division III. We'll see what happens when it plays out at the convention. And so I will be there for that in both the role of D3 Hoops, or part of Hoopsville, I should say, and part of the YD3 show. We'll be talking to student athletes when we get the opportunity. We'll talk to some other people there. We'll talk to those involved with those bills as well as they pass or don't pass throughout our time there. So lots to cover. We'll be getting there Thursday and staying through Saturday. You can follow us on Twitter, not only at D3 Hoopsville. Also follow me on my personal Twitter, at Dave McHugh. You can also follow me or follow the at YD3 show for updates on a lot of things and, of course, videos and whatnot. We'll have meetings with people as well. So if you have questions you want us to tackle or want to look at or see if you can get us answers to, we'll certainly do our best. You can certainly contact us, Hoopsville at d3hoops.com or dave.mchugh at d3sports.com via email or via Twitter. You can contact us and we will do our best to keep you up to date with what is going on. Of course, you can follow the YD3 hashtag for everything. You can also follow the D3H hashtag in basketball and whatnot. We'll keep you as informed as we can from the National Harbor Gaylord Center just outside Washington, D.C. Got an interesting week ahead. We'll have some interviews lined up for Sunday coming up. Certainly lots to talk about in the South, New England, Atlantic, and Central regions, along with the rest of Division III basketball. We'll get you up to date starting at 7 o'clock Eastern Time here on the show. So if you have any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoops or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. We'll certainly try and answer as many of your questions as we possibly can when we're on the air, off the air, or whatnot. Again, we'll be back on the air Sunday. That will be our big day to be back live, and we'll give you updates as to where we may be traveling next. And, of course, the 12-hour marathon show and our Hoopsville fundraising campaign, Part 2. That should do it. I want to thank again our coaches from around the country. McDaniel, women's basketball. Becky Martin. I want to thank New Paltz men's basketball coach Mike Rainiak. Thomas Moore's women's basketball coach, Coach Hans. From the West, Chapman's men's basketball coach Mike Bukowski. And, of course, our School of the Week, Bard men's basketball coach Adam Turner. Thanks for joining us on the show, everybody there. Thanks for tuning in to the entire show, the non-live version, whether you listen to it on the podcast through SoundCloud or, of course, via YouTube on our live video feed. We appreciate you taking the time. Let your friends know about the show as well. Hoopsville is presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We certainly appreciate your fanhood, as it were. We hope you have a good rest of the season and enjoy the weekend of basketball. We'll be back here Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern. Good night, everybody.